Welcome to The Road. This is a weekly podcast of All Saints Lutheran Church. I'm your host, John Pedersen, and I serve as pastor. Each week, we reflect on faith, life, and navigating the road ahead. The language of journey is common when we think about life. It has its joys and challenges along the way, and we all need a little encouragement and guidance at times to keep us going. There's a word in the Bible, asphalia, which means truth, but it's the same root word we use in English for asphalt, if you can believe that. It's a solid surface that makes travel easier and more assured. And so every week we're going to be exploring elements of faith and life that keep us on the road. Faith isn't about living a perfect life. It's about finding our way, getting through rough spots, but seeking out those great vistas too. You can find my weekly message here, but you'll also find special conversations with guests who have insights on things like wellness, parenting, and living with unique purpose. If you appreciate this podcast, remember to subscribe where possible and share it with a friend. Here's this week's message. Well, we're continuing our series, Confident and Generous. It's a time to reflect on how we approach generosity. The scripture I just read is a snapshot into two communities of faith during Paul's ministry. The congregation in Corinth was more cosmopolitan for those days and probably had more financial means. We don't know a lot about the specific area of Macedonia Paul is referencing, but it's essentially southern Europe, but only that they're living in extreme poverty and have been experiencing some kind of affliction. As Paul traveled around the Mediterranean, he was sharing the gospel with those who were not traditionally Jewish. And as you may have heard me mention a few weeks ago, there was some disagreement about this in the early church, but everyone agreed to support each other with one unifying mission: to remember the poor. And so to fulfill that commitment and to support the whole mission to the Gentiles and to the poor, Paul has been asking for contributions from communities where he has served. The Macedonians themselves were poor. And you get the sense from Paul's words that he not only did not ask them to contribute, but also declined to accept any contributions from them initially. And so he says they were begging him to let them be part of the ministry by sharing what they could offer. You know, for many of us, it's probably common to think, I'll be generous when I have enough, or I feel comfortable with where I'm at. And while that can seem like a very pragmatic approach, the truth is that if that's our approach, it's pretty unlikely we'll ever find a time when we will feel truly secure enough. Increased financial means can have some impact on how secure we feel, but a lot of studies have been done with people of varying income levels, and having more money doesn't mean you feel better necessarily. It's our underlying mentality that's at the heart of how we feel about our financial situation, not simply our numbers. So knowing that, the big question I want you to remember from today and to reflect on is this: how do you live into your values and your ideals, not when your situation is optimal, but when it really matters? So we're in the middle of our mission resource appeal, and yes, I certainly want you to reflect on generosity as it relates to our mission at All Saints. Our mission depends on your giving. But this question and this topic is bigger than that. It's also about how you approach giving and generosity more broadly. What can we learn about the Macedonians and the difficult situation they found themselves in? How did they embrace an attitude of generosity despite all of that? Ultimately, the way we get there isn't simply by gritting our teeth and becoming generous by sheer force of will, as if it's a monumental task. But notice how Paul describes the generosity and giving of the Macedonians. They had abundant joy. They did it voluntarily. Their response overflowed in a wealth of generosity. They gave according to their means, but even beyond their means. They were begging us for the privilege of sharing in the ministry. Notice just the positive and joyful mindset. Their poverty would give them every right to take on a mindset of scarcity instead, and no one would blame them for that for a second. But maybe it's partly the fact that they don't have much wealth to begin with, that they haven't attached their identity and security to that. That's not what they're looking to in order to provide them with a sense of fulfillment and meaning. Instead, they see what Paul is doing. They've experienced and seen the goodness of the mission and the gospel. And for them, that's meaningful. Their faith is a source of joy and hope. That's their source of identity. And they want to be part of what comes next and what Paul is doing. They want to be part of the movement. The truth is that they probably felt discounted, unable to participate. They didn't want their proportionately smaller financial means to prevent them from sharing in the ministry and mission. How do you usually experience and see giving? Is it a joy to share? Is it filled with unease on some level? I really believe that for most people, we have high ideals when it comes to giving and sharing. And we almost certainly do it in particular areas of our lives already. So if you do find yourself more uncertain about giving financially in particular, what can you learn from those areas where you give more freely and joyfully? And how can you apply that to some new areas? So I want to take a step back and just think about generosity and how we approach giving globally, including those of us who live in the West. The church in the US and Europe has sent missionaries to many places around the world in less developed areas and in poor areas. We've often believed that we have something to share. We have wealth to share, certainly. We have faith to share, and we do have both of those. And so we go there and we give. And many Lutheran organizations even have grown over the last century or two to do just that. And we identify ways that we can help Christians and anyone around the world. We may help them build structures that they might not otherwise be able to build. We may help them build wells for clean water or purchase other equipment. We help in times of disaster. It's part of sharing what we've received so that there's a degree of equity. There are lots of projects we can implement which offer improvements, and some of the funds that you give each year to All Saints go to support ELCA ministries like ELCA World Hunger and ELCA Disaster Response. We're helping our neighbors around the world. All Saints also gives to organizations like Lutheran Healthcare Bangladesh, Latin American Lutheran Mission, and Casa Hogar Elam. During Advent, I'll be sharing some things that Lutheran World Relief is doing and opportunities to support their ongoing work. We're called to serve our neighbor locally and globally, so this matters. But in recent decades, some of those same Christian communities that we've helped have actually sent missionaries back to us. They don't want to only be recipients of the gospel and the blessings that they've received. When I was serving in the Milwaukee area years ago, our synod welcomed a pastor from Tanzania who served in a local congregation and walked alongside us. In a variety of ways over time, he provided another voice and perspective and approach to ministry that helped us just see some things in a new way. Several years ago, the Minneapolis area did something similar, and we hosted Pastor Elias Katoy Nasari from Nigeria. And again, this was a chance for us to learn from someone with a unique perspective. When I was in seminary, a number of my classmates were pastors from churches throughout Africa. Many don't have a Lutheran seminary in their home country, so they come to the US to study. In fact, one of my seminary classmates is now Archbishop Musa Philibus, who is now president of the Lutheran World Federation. He's seeking to build a university in Nigeria with the help of our Minneapolis area synod. But one thing that I occasionally heard some of my classmates from Africa communicate in words, but also in how they lived and approached things, was that money and wealth is a gift. It's wonderful. But it also can distract us from deeper meaning. Our financial resources are a true gift, but there's also more than that. There's joy in the gospel and in relationship with God. There's joy in community. There's joy in sharing. Our finances are part of our life. In fact, in our wellness resources on our website and as part of our vision, part of our wellness is actually our financial wellness and our well-being. Not simply how we're managing our budget, but as we develop financial well-being, we actively strive to find and maintain balance in our relationship with earning money and taking care of that money, along with our work and all the other things that we're called to do in our lives, as well as share some of that. It's not inherently good or bad in itself, our money, but simply one more part of our lives that we can see as an opportunity to live out our values and priorities. So this year, we're asking you to reflect on your giving. And your giving may include places in addition to All Saints. We affirm that. But we're asking you first to reflect on your giving to All Saints as a percentage of your income this year. We've sent out, as I mentioned earlier, mission resource brochures to many this week, but we have some available here today by the Welcome Center. Consider how you can be part of this mission and share in the opportunity to provide God's love and a life-giving community for our neighbors in the coming year. Next Sunday, we'll be collecting statement of intent cards here at church, and these will be important in helping us assess our ability to invest in our ministry in the year ahead. In addition to bringing your card to church next Sunday, you can also mail one in if you received a card at home. You can also go to the homepage on our website, scroll down to find a link to our mission resource appeal information, including an online form that you can complete to let us know your plans in the coming year. We know that everyone's situation is unique. Every gift is appreciated. Every gift matters. Whatever you plan for the coming year, make a plan that brings you joy and hope for the ministry that lies ahead for all of us. Share in our ministry to the saints. Amen. That's this week's message. You don't have to navigate the road ahead alone. You can join with others at All Saints. Visit allsaintsmtka.org for more information. Have a great week.